Welcome back to another in-depth guide. This time, we're going to be taking on the new Tree of Heroes boss, Farakel. We're going to start out with an overview of the raid, the lobby screen and best team monsters to bring, then step-by-step guide on how to defeat all three phases of the elements, the mini-bosses, and of course the final Farakel form. Alright, so this boss has 5 stages: fire, water, wind, the mini-bosses, and the final form. Here are some of the monsters I suggest bringing with you, or at least having ready or built to take in with you if you need to swap out monsters. Let's start with the DPS tier list. In my opinion, top from bottom, Argon is your best pick. Argon, as you know, is a god in all PvE content. This raid is included. Argon is a phenomenal monster for taking down the majority of these bosses. He'll struggle a little bit up against the fire boss, but honestly, he does a pretty good job even still. My number 2 pick is Naran-Ha. Naran-Ha was an exclusive monster, but thankfully Global was able to get a second go round of the Naran-Ha banner and was able to get Naran-Ha if they wanted to. Number 3 pick for me is Tessa. Tessarion is an amazing DPS fire monster. While he's not my first pick, he certainly is an amazing DPS monster and can handle himself very well in this raid. Number 4, Brandia. Brandia is an all-around great damage monster, especially in boss rooms. Number 5, Espino. Espino is just a solid damage dealer, water type. Lastly, Theomars. Theomars also is a solid water damage dealer. My next set of monsters I want to suggest are your healing monsters. You're going to need at least one healing/cleansing monster on your team. My top picks are Ariel and Shushu. Ariel is an amazing monster, is able to cleanse on his skill 2, heal on both skills, apply a defense buff, as well as an all-around great tanky monster. Number 2 is Shushu. Shushu also is an amazing monster who applies immunity to your team, as well as cleanses off all of the many dots that you're going to receive in this boss fight. In my opinion, I like Ariel over Shushu. The immunity is great, cleansing off the dots is great, but you also get a lot of defense down as well as damage taken up debuffs onto you and your team. These I feel like are extremely deadly, and I would rather have Ariel so that way Ariel can cleanse off those specific debuffs. Ariel's also going to be able to cleanse off the dots as well, which is why I put Ariel above Shushu in this particular fight. Number 3 is Lulu. Lulu is a phenomenal, lesser version of Ariel, being able to cleanse off a single debuff and also do a lot of healing. Lulu does suffer from the 4-star stats, much like Shushu, but Shushu brings a little bit more to the table than Lulu in this case. Annabelle is another decent monster. She cleanses, she heals, and she also is able to cleanse off the specific move speed down debuff that you get every so often during this fight. If you're a Kina main, you could probably get away with a Wusa, but I honestly wouldn't suggest it. The next category is support alternate. Vertiheel is the number 1 pick here. Many people already have a Vertiheel built, and if you don't, now is a great time to build them. Vertiheel is an amazing monster for doing lots of damage in a raid. Vertiheel has several things that he brings to the table. His skill 1 specifically lands a crit resistance down debuff, which is extremely vital in this raid, specifically against the fire and the neutral boss later on. His second skill just regens your mana relatively quickly, allowing you to do more skills and more damage. Lastly, his ultimate. His ultimate is incredible for doing big damage. His ultimate is very simple. Once you have your ultimate ready, pop it while Vertiheel is soul linked. Make sure to stack up that crit damage taken up by spamming that skill at 1 mana cost. Then you can swap over to your Argon, Naran-Ha, or damage dealer and continue to spit out damage at 1 mana cost each skill. Vertiheel can be replaced by the newer Fire Fox if you do have that monster built, but in my opinion, Vertiheel just brings more to the table. Other options for support alternatives would be Bastet and Wusa. Both of them bring shields. Bastet, of course, brings attack up and summoner mana gain, and then Wusa, of course, brings the immunity and a little bit extra healing. All of these things are very nice in addition to all the other things that you're bringing. At least one member of your team should bring a Vertiheel, preferably 2 members bring a Vertiheel for that all-important crit damage taken up debuff. The 3 elemental bosses, fire, water, and wind, that will come first, they can come in any order, so be prepared to swap monsters to the appropriate elements. Phase 1, the elemental bosses. For phase 1, there will be 3 subphases. The boss will turn into one of the 3 elements, fire, water, or wind. Each element phase will come with its own set of movesets and challenges. In order to clear phase 1, you will need to destroy all 3 of the elemental towers. The catch is that you can't destroy it, Farakel has to do it. I will show you how to do that when we get to each element phase. The fire phase. The fire phase, or the fire version, is the easiest but comes with its own set of challenges. There isn't a specific order for the attacks you will use, so you'll need to react quickly to each attack as they come up. An important part of the Fire Farakel passive is that he has increased critical resistance, which will make him very hard to kill. This is where your Vertiheal will come in very handy. Not every summoner needs a Verd, 1 to 2 should do. If you are the solo Verd user, make sure that you stay soul linked on your Verd the majority of the fire phase to keep landing his skill 1 and apply that crit resistance down debuff. Otherwise, the boss will take forever to kill. Let's go through his attacks. Fire Farakel has 2 basic attacks, Impaling Strike and Combo Strike. Each of these attacks are quick and can't be dodged easily. If you or your monsters are already low health, these basic attacks can easily kill. The next attack, Inferno. Farakel will create a red pattern directly in front of him, charge forward, and leave a trail of fire lingering on the ground. He will do this 1 to 2 more times, leaving 2 to 3 fire trails. Obviously, stay out of these as they hurt a lot, and definitely avoid being hit by the charge. Something to think about though is you want to try to keep him kind of close to the green tower. Another attack is a large sweep in a simple cone in front of him. You want to dodge to the opposite side to avoid damage. The more people that are caught in this attack, the higher the damage will be. The final attack, and the most important one, is the Origin Destroyer Mortality. This attack will choose a summoner and place a target on them. The summoner needs to make sure that that target creates a straight line shot, which ends up hitting the Wind Origin Tower. As soon as the target goes away, he is about to strike, so you will need to dodge out of the way. You will have to keep fighting him a little while longer until he strikes the tower twice with his targeted attack. Once the Wind Tower is destroyed and he has reached 80% HP or 20% less where he started, he will phase into the next element. The Water Boss. Remember, he could phase into any element, but the same conditions apply. Make sure that Farakel destroys the opposing element tower and reduces HP by 20%. The water element can be kind of tricky. Let's walk through it. His basic attacks are the same quick swipes, but you'll want to cleanse those defense downs off as soon as possible and be at full health, because even those basic attacks can kill you if you're low health. Water Farakel will sometimes go into a red bubble or a blue bubble. Very simple. Don't hit the red bubble, make sure to hit the blue bubble. If you hit the red bubble several times while it's up, he will do a large AoE attack that very easily could kill if somebody is less than full health. By breaking the blue shield, he will go into a short groggy phase where you can really stack up some damage. The next major attack is a triple wave attack. Farakel will announce the pattern of waves with a red sequence on the ground. Note what the order is and dodge out of the way as best you can. This can be quite tricky, especially for mobile players, but even for me on PC, so it's best to save your dodge for these quick movements. The most important pattern is when he drops a blue orb on your summoner. Be watching your summoner carefully. When this notification shows up on the screen, the orb is blue and the boss is blue, so there's a lot happening and it's easy to miss sometimes. If you have a blue orb on you, run over to the fire tower and stand next to it. A blue pool will appear and do damage to the tower as well as yourself, so make sure to run out of that pool as quickly as possible. You'll have to go through these patterns of attacks several times until the tower is destroyed and the boss has lost 20% health. This can be kind of tricky though, as the boss actually has a drain effect which he heals himself up, so you'll need to be cautious of that and continue to attack the boss. The wind element is quite annoying and my least favorite. Let's look at the attack patterns. Again, these can be in any order. He's got his basic attacks, a swipe and a cross swipe. Both of these can be deadly with defense down or damage taken up, so keep yourself healed up. Next attack is Water Spout. Wind Farakel will drop a bunch of spots on the ground around him and it will knock you up, do damage, and apply shock. These generally don't do a lot of damage, but still avoid them and return to continue doing damage. The tornado attacks are my least favorite. He will release 2 tornadoes that will follow after a summoner. You can get aggro on these tornadoes by getting very close to them. Farakel will also choose a summoner, chase, and attack them. The goal here is that 1 to 2 summoners will aggro the tornadoes away from the summoner so that Farakel is only fighting 1 summoner without the tornadoes being involved. This is much easier said than done. Make sure to stay out of these tornadoes as they are super deadly and will easily wipe your whole team. The last attack is Divine Punishment. This is the one that actually can destroy the Origin water tower. Farakel will leap into the air and rain down lightning. You will see the spots on the ground follow you as you run around the boss room. To destroy the tower, you will need to run a tight circle around the water tower, allowing the lightning to do damage to the tower. Tips for this is to try to have a plan going into the battle. Who is going to be in charge of the circle, and everyone else needs to stay away from each other, or you could accidentally hit your other summoners and kill them. Phase 4 is the mini-boss phase. After you've destroyed all 3 towers and Farakel reaches 40% HP, he will go into an invincible phase and summon 3 monster bosses around the boss room. Head to the glowing pillars in front of the bosses to enter the mini-fight. Each summoner will take a separate mini-boss. Let's go over all 3. The Fire Ifrit Tesarion is pretty easy. You can switch to your own water damage dealer or just stick with your Argon or your Tesarion. Try and land some defense breaks and just nuke him down. The Wind Sylph Shimate is also very easy. If you have a fire damage dealer like Tesarion, you can swap to that or just use your Argon. The Water Undine Mikni is the hardest one by far due to her revive buff that she applies to herself. In order to counter this, you'll want to have either a reliable strip like Orbia Light Weapon or bring Narin Ha, who has a block beneficial effect debuff. You can also go the nuke route. Kill the Undine, she will revive and quickly kill her again before she can reapply that revive buff to herself. I usually let the Orbias handle this boss as it seems to be a little easier for them, but if you're a Cleef or Akina and have a Narin Ha, feel free to take it on. I don't have a Narin Ha, so the Undine still gives me a lot of trouble. If you get done with your boss quickly, you can run back into another mini-boss to help that summoner who might be struggling. In most cases, it's probably the summoner dealing with the Water Undine. Once the bar at the bottom runs out, you can still finish killing the mini-bosses, but the final boss will begin phase 3 and begin attack phases, so try to be done with the mini-bosses before the timer runs out so you can all be ready to take on the boss's final form. Farakel Final Form. This is the part of the fight where most runs will fail, and for most of us, this is where the real boss fight begins. It is very important that you have 1 to 2 Vertiheals on your team, because this final form also has 80% critical resistance, so landing that crucial debuff from Verd will be essential to defeating this boss. Farakel will go through many of the attacks from the other 3 element versions, and they will be random which attacks he chooses, so you have to be ready. To defeat him, simply take his HP down to 0. Easier said than done. Also make sure to try and stay nearby your teammates to receive important buffs and even healing that will help you survive the final form. At the 7-minute mark, the boss will begin doing more damage every 30 seconds, so the longer you take to kill the boss, the harder he will hit. If he kills one of your monsters, his ultimate gauge is going to go up. Lose enough monsters and he will ult and you will lose. Before I wrap things up, I brought on Kigerr, a fellow YouTuber and content creator who is a valuable resource to the community, bringing his in-depth knowledge to the game, its systems, and mechanics. He's got some additional tips for you concerning Farakel.
What's going on, guys? Kigerr here, and thank you very much to TopherSmurf for letting me collaborate on this video. Farakel is a very interesting boss, and I'm going to run you through some important things to keep in mind. First, during all phases, he has a very basic skill that doesn't really have a name, but he'll spin his weapon to his side, and then he's going to march forward. When you see him spin, you want to walk to either side of him. Now, after he does this spin, he's going to walk forward swiping his weapon. A lot of people don't sidestep this because it doesn't do a lot of damage, but it applies a stack of damage taken up per hit, which does ramp up the damage by a considerable amount. One of the biggest things I see people mess up is during each of the 3 elemental phases, he will use a skill that is designed to destroy the elemental weakness tower. Just think Pokemon colors. Red against green, green against blue, blue against red. But if you make him attack the wrong tower, either the same color or the opposite color, then it will do a huge AoE damage to all summoners and monsters regardless of where they're standing. Generally during the tornado phase and pickup groups, I recommend just running away and playing it safe and not worry about who it's chasing after, things like that. Now, if you're with a group that knows what they're doing, Farakel is going to run after a target. Then whoever runs close to the tornadoes will aggro them. So the idea, if you want to min-max, is whoever Farakel picks to target, he runs to the side. Then a second player runs to both tornadoes, get close to them, pull the aggro of them and bring it somewhere else. Third player and the first player with Farakel dump damage on Farakel while this third player is keeping the tornadoes way over here. Then during the mini boss phase, you have the 3 elemental ones. Something to keep in mind when you go to your perspective 1 is they have their element. So Tessarian, the Wind Sylph, and Menike, the Water Undyne, they will target if you have a monster they are strong against. They will target that monster instead of you or anybody else. So if you bring, let's say, Argon against Tessarian, he's going to 2-shot your Argon. So be careful. Now we know that red means stop, and green, or in this case, blue, means go. Same thing for the shields. Now when he goes with his blue shield, he also cleanses himself. So if you have a monster that cares about number of debuffs, like Argon or Naran-Ha, that's not going to work during this phase. Also, there's a bit of a graphical thing going on with it, where it doesn't really show up the correct color, or you're stuck in an animation and then you end up hitting the red shield when you didn't really want to. Well, if you pay attention to Farakel, he will cross his arms and pick up his legs to his chest, as if like in a cocoon. That will signify that he's going into this phase. Stop everything you're doing and wait until you see the color. Red means stop, green, or in this case blue, means go. 2 quick things before we get out of here. Everyone's bringing their high DPS characters, Argon, Naran-Ha, things like that, which is good, but you're really going to want to hit these breakpoints so you can make it. You're going to want a good amount of crit rate, crit damage, which is going to be tough against the fire and neutral phases at the end because of his 80% crit damage decrease. Someone is going to have Vertihel or the Fire Ninetales, or it's just going to take a bit to get through this. Now, another breakpoint to keep in mind is you're really going to want at least 4,500 HP on your DPS units for when these big AoEs happen, or if you get caught up in a tornado, or if any AoE hits you, they're more likely to survive. They can get one-shot though if you don't dodge the swipe, and then you have multiple stacks of damage taken up on you. Last but not least is the equipment. The weapon itself, I'm sorry, is not very good. You get capped out at level 10, and late game you're going to have level 10, so it's not going to do anything for you. The sub-weapon is also not very good. Monster crit rate is a good stat, but you should be able to make up for that with runes as well as gems on your summoner to increase your monster's crit rate. As far as the accessories though, this is a very, very powerful one for both Kina and Orbia. Reducing the damage they take in PvP allows them to use their monsters as a shield and survive through the assassins that are coming after them. Back to you, Topher.
I really hope this guide helped you. These sort of guides take a lot of time to make, so I would really appreciate it if you left a like on the video. If you've made your way back to your 2nd, 3rd, or 100th video of mine, I think it's time for you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I live stream often, so I would love to hang out with you and chat. If you have any questions or just want to brag about defeating the boss the first try, make sure to join the Discord down below. Link will be in the description. Make sure to leave a comment down below letting me know when you first beat Farakel. As always guys, I'm TopherSmurf telling you to keep on gaming.